Yeah.
We are waiting.
Why can't Anthony Dodson, Charlottesville neo-Nazi tiki torch-wearing pansy, play Tetris?
Why?
Because he's dead.
He did
He killed
subscribe
himself.
before, so thank
Isn't that
you.
funny? It's funny, right? Probably not.
I only hope in death he finds the peace he was trying to bring to other people.
Yeah.
That's one way of describing it.
So upset.
Yep.
So
What
then,
a
now
terrible...
that I've leaned into my political beliefs so fucking hard in the first 10 seconds of this show, and
Keep
probably
politics out of entertainment.
I mean, really, the article I'd seen
I
about
feel
him...
offended. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry.
I mean, the article I saw about it should just say, and no one was sad. And that should be the end of the article.
Anyway, this is an After Dark episode of the Phantom Zone. I am in a particularly rough mood after dealing with Microsoft for 45 minutes and buying Dark Souls Remastered only to have it crash in the first hour of gameplay every single time, only to have that problem fixed by just reinstalling it.
That's how you solve most problems on consoles.
That's the first time I've ever had to actually do that, though.
Yeah. That's
And
life
I knew,
in
like,
the 21st century.
And I wouldn't be in this situation if GameStop had opened at a human hour instead of at, I don't know, 10 or 11 a.m. Like,
they're the worst company ever.
So,
yeah.
Really, if you go back far enough, this is all their fault.
Yeah,
I
as
guess.
most things are.
Including that Anthony Dodson joke.
God damn it.
Well, they
They're
are
all
looking for a new CEO.
Yeah. Yeah. He left. He left like after what, like 4 months of being the CEO.
I worked there for 5 years, and I think we
Yeah.
had 7 CEOs.
Yeah.
God damn it.
I wonder how much trade-in credit they're going to give him in retirement.
Here's this GameStop debit card.
Like
Here's-
75 cents cash and like $4.50 credit.
I remember a long time ago.
And a copy of
I traded in-
Pokemon Gold.
I traded in Resident Evil 2 not long after the PlayStation's like life cycle had ended, or it was even starting to end. I got 69 cents.
Yeah.
for
That
Resident
sounds about right.
Nice. But
My
no.
favorite thing that people would do is they figured out that if you just like printed out the sticker for Pokemon and you just bought another DS game, they would just stick it to that.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, that was like a big scam for a while.
My big thing, and this was quite a while ago when I was living in Pittsburgh and I was broke, I would have enough money to buy a game, and I would then spend 5 days beating it.
Oh, you
and
were
then return it and get a new game for it, because that was when they still had the, if you return it within 7 days, no questions asked, you can get a full
you were one
refund.
of those people. We hate
Uh-huh.
Man,
Well, you know what?
Do you go to Redbox, rent a game, and then just print out a paper copy of the disc and put it back in the
No.
box? Okay.
No,
'cause
I don't
those
do that
people-
anymore.
Those people are going to the special 8th layer of hell, where only super shiesty scumbags go.
Right.
Yeah, no, I stopped doing that after a while because...
Thanks for costing me $1.99.
In that layer, you are put into a disc. Into a disc holder.
See, this is why you guys should have watched Lucifer, because I love their version of hell.
why?
Yeah, but Lou, haven't you heard the plot of Hellraiser Judgment, where where punishing people in hell just isn't efficient anymore? So they come
This
up
is-
with
yeah, I remember
a
we was talking
bureaucratic
about
way
this.
to fix it, and air
They have one fucking job. One fucking job.
ever his head around that.
So in the show, they only show it, I think, twice. But basically, everyone, if you're in hell, you're stuck in what they call like a hell loop, and you live your biggest regret over and over.
Oh, they
and
did
over.
that. They did that in Preacher.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
creature.
Yeah.
Or supernatural, even to some extent.
Or in Greek mythology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think the one they show, it's like the therapist's husband does like all this stuff, and he tries to kill Lucifer, and then he ends up getting killed by a serial killer. But then he wakes up in the hospital, and then you see it like kind of start to go all over again.
I still think the Greek method of hell is the most like mundanely terrifying thing I've ever heard. Here, your afterlife would have pushed this rock up this hill.
That's
simple, right? Go
those are
do it.
specific-
Ah, it fell
Yeah, that's a
down.
specific guy, though.
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
specific cases.
Prometheus.
Well, that one wasn't Prometheus. That one was fuck. What was that?
I can't remember.
It's
yeah,
just
what-
Sisyphus.
Prometheus, the one
Yeah.
with the crows, and they would eat out his
Yep.
kidneys.
Prometheus
Yes.
was damned to have his insides pecked out by birds every single day.
Yes.
Remember when they used that analog in Prometheus?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, hold
The
on.
hit film starring
No,
Guy
they
Pearce.
they use it in Covenant mostly more than that.
I would say I don't remember like that being represented in either film.
Yeah.
it's only there in like deleted scenes for the most part. So,
The, the TED
Yeah.
talk that Peter Whalen gives.
yeah, he does mention it. What was I gonna say? But yeah, like that punishment of like being stuck in a time loop. That's if you piss somebody off. Like
Yeah.
if you got Zeus pissed at you, that
Yeah,
was
if you piss off Hades, he's like, here, listen, I don't
Mhm.
normally do this job with any sort of emotion or efficiency, but I'm making a special case for you because I'm particularly pissed off.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hades doesn't want to fucking run hell.
Well, that's
No.
just basically the plot of that show is that they figured out like in this last canceled season they're like, oh, basically everybody punishes themselves, and if you just like let go, then you're fine.
Mhm.
But they did release the last 2 bonus episodes this week of like this 4th season that's never going to air. And the
Man,
last one,
hang on, how hard of an apology is a bonus episode?
well, they did
That's
2.
the big one.
The last one, which was awesome, I would suggest anybody watch because they did a voiceover for the whole episode with God as the voiceover, voiced by Neil Gaiman himself.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
He's the voice of God.
That's actually
Makes
an
sense.
interesting. Yeah.
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 It
I
was
just haven't
cool.
watched
It
it
was
because of
it was a-
time.
It was a
Yeah,
what if
exactly.
episode. So basically, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, if I change this one thing since I'm God, let's see how it all turned out.
Right.
That's one of the shows where I was like, in between all the other stuff we were watching, I was like, yeah, I'll get to that. Season
Yeah.
2. Yeah, I'll get to that. Lucifer canceled. Well, now I can get to it whenever.
Well, I guess Neil Gaiman needed to get out of the house and get away from Amanda Palmer because heard some things.
So, I'm Connor McGraw. For those who don't know already who the loudest person on the show is.
Yeah. Arlen Aro here every week.
Eric Fedorchak here almost every week.
Lou Gonzalez here most of the time, I think, at this point.
And I'm Alan Muir of the Smallville Chronicles.
Oh my god,
God
for
damn
some
you.
reason I was really looking forward to Alan's introduction.
Okay, we need to establish this right now. Legacy members introduce themselves first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was waiting, and like Alan always like.
No,
waits
I
the
like
longest.
to go last.
No, this is for the legacy members.
I'm
They
just-
need to
I just-
understand this.
I just, in my head, imagine Alan standing behind a curtain, just like with a big smile on his face, like his arms all pumped in the air, just waiting to jump out and do that one little arm pump, like, I'm Alan Muir.
Yep, it's pretty good. It's a very evocative image. But anyway,
And then he rips off his Phantom Zone T-shirt, and there's a Smallville Chronicle T-shirt under there, and he's like, from the Smallville Chronicles.
Hey man, you make fun, but we just watched an episode with Amy Adams.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot of people have watched that episode. So
It is very weird to see
I think
somebody.
it's a very strange thing that Amy Adams went from being on the TV show about Superman not being Superman to full-on Lois Lane.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was
there's-
weird.
Including their Lois, there was 4 Loises on that show.
I mean,
What?
'cause that's not like that's not like Bryan Cranston being on Power Rangers because they intentionally did that because it was a joke on the internet that he was like a voice of like who was it, like the pig guy or whatever. Was he?
He
The,
was
Something.
not the voice of Pudgy Pig.
Who was he the voice of? I can't remember. Some one of the B-list monsters that nobody remembers. But yeah.
That is the only Power Rangers monster I remember, by the way.
Well, he had a book. He had like a kid's book.
He was a toy, a book. He was in the game. He had 2 episodes. Like, for some reason, that was the fucking monster that the American side was like, "Yep, we gotta push Pudgy."
I
Pig."
guess.
Well,
I mean,
he looks like a mad ball with legs. So
yeah. I mean that Roman helmet that does something. I guess. I don't
Mhm.
know. I mean, goes
it does a
long way.
lot for me.
Also, he eats. I guess that's what it is. He
That's-
eats a
that's
lot
the
of
thing I-
food.
Like, I remember distinctly every time watching that episode, just being very hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. He eats so many carrots. So no, that's how they beat him, right? Not carrots or some other vegetable. I can't remember.
It's a bunch of vegetables. I can't remember. what it
Yeah.
is.
Anyways, Power Rangers, guys.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Stan Lee. I was held at gunpoint in my home this week, or at least I thought it was my home. It was actually my neighbor's house. I didn't know where I was.
If it wasn't so sad, it'd be funny.
Stan.
Yeah, if it wasn't a 95-year-old man this was happening to, it might be a little bit better.
I fucking love Stan Lee, and like I understand he's not a saint, but he's also like basically dead. And
he doesn't deserve any of this.
The world needs to lay off.
It's like I know he's still alive, but I think it's like Casey Kasem. Like I remember when that happened, all the stuff with him like a couple of years ago. I was just like, oh, why is anybody doing this?
Oh I remember that.
Wait,
there was a thing
his,
with his wife.
His like fourth wife was like people thought she was holding him hostage in their house because she wouldn't let the kids see him. It's like all this weird stuff.
Hang on, Butter's fucking real fast.
The same thing was also happening with Richard Simmons. Like he disappeared, like, and people were claiming that his housekeeper or someone along those lines was
Did you ever listen
hostage.
to that podcast?
Which one?
What happened to Richard Simmons?
No, I didn't get around to it.
Really, really good.
Really?
Yes, and because of it, he called Good Morning America to like prove he was alive.
That doesn't mean he's not being held hostage.
Exactly.
That proves nothing, Richard.
Well, it wasn't just hostage. Like there were people who thought he was transitioning, and I mean,
yes.
if it was that, maybe people should have laid off because
it wasn't that. Though. It basically boiled down to a former hairdresser who was a very, according to him, very, very close friend. Mm-hmm. Since Richard's never actually said anything about what he's into.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
he's the one that started all this, and he got the cops involved.
Okay.
That's
that makes sense.
fitness guy, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
the 80s fitness guy. Yes.
That's
like sweating to the oldies.
Dancing onesie guy who seems like he's always on cocaine in every interview you ever saw with him.
If you stay up too late at night, you will see a commercial featuring him. If you grew up from a certain time to a certain time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do they even have things like that on late at night anymore? I don't know.
Well, now it's just Girls Gone Wild. Warning!
I don't even think that's a thing anymore. That guy's in jail.
Because that guy...
That shit's gone.
It's gone. It is.
I feel like people don't have TVs anymore, so who knows what's on late at night on commercials.
Dude, I haven't.
There is
first of all, I haven't
stuff.
Yeah,
but it's
and most of it is Adult Swim.
Well, yes, but it's all like local stuff almost, like a lot of it. So it's like law firms.
Have you seen the photo that got passed around of some woman who was like trying to stir up, I guess, a controversy because she says she turned on Cartoon Network at like 5 or 6 a.m. when her kids were like getting ready for school, and she caught the tail end of an episode of like, what the fuck is that new-ish animated show on Adult Swim about the dog who's actually Satan?
Oh, Pickles.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, she
Mr.
caught
Pickles?
the tail end of Pickles.
There's a lot of like S&M stuff in it. It's really weird.
Pictures of the funniest fucking thing. She's like, this is on Cartoon Network, and it's just like a picture of a dog with its eyes bleeding with 666 in the background and flames everywhere. I'm like, this is the funniest out of context, I don't understand what I'm looking at photo I've ever seen.
It's a weird dumb show because it's like
stupid, like overly like try hard offensive show about like a dog who murders people and fucks their corpses, like and drags other corpses into his doghouse where there's a big blood orgy going on. I'm like, okay, you can do this. It's not good.
Edgelord the cartoon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this woman saw it and was like, Cartoon Network's poisoning our minds, our children's mind with satanic messages.
Yeah, sure. Whatever, man.
I was like, and I'm back in my head like, actual satanic messages would be better than what you're looking at right now.
Hey Connor, did you get that thing I sent you?
Get that thing I sent you?
God, the Phantom Zone is slowly becoming the Harvey Birdman advocacy program.
I will advocate that program until I die, or until it comes back, which will be very soon.
Oh, somebody sued them over Black Jesus also, which, come on.
Oh, that show is awesome.
Black Jesus? That sounds amazing.
It's literally like if the character is playing it as if he is Jesus, but it's like a giant black guy, but he's in the hood.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he is Jesus, but he's also as if he was a guy in the hood. So he's like trying to rob. Yeah, he's like trying to rob people of their drug money and stuff. And then like he's doesn't like the one that I saw, they were trying to rob a church, and Charlie Murphy was in the show, and he was like
Adult
something in
Swim
church.
has courted controversy so many times,
Yeah.
and they never seem to actually like make anybody talk about it.
Well,
Because it airs at 1 a.m. Nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
The
Two,
thing is,
it's bad programming every time they do it.
Yeah.
I feel like they're always like a shittier South Park. Like they want to be South Park, but they're not as smart with their
Well, yeah,
programs.
like
Yeah.
I just remember despising Moral Oral because Moral Oral is the most like, look, religion's evil, isn't it? Ha
No.
ha!
That show gets so dark though. Like the end of
Yeah.
the last
remember an episode
episode,
where he does
Oral kills
heroin.
himself
Does he?
because he
What?
kills himself at the end. Oral kills himself at the end because he can't save the world, or something to that effect.
that
It's so
sounds
good.
amazing.
My favorite
It's-
failed Adult Swim program still is Frankenhole. I have a DVD
Frankenhole.
of the entire first season, the only season.
My favorite failed one was Lucy, Daughter of the Devil.
I
I've
like
actually
that.
heard that was really good.
It
Yeah,
was.
the devil is voiced by H. John Benjamin.
Yes.
Oh my
damn it.
god.
And
Yes.
my favorite thing is it's like CG. It's like what do you call it, like 3D like computer graphics.
Right.
But my
Mhm.
favorite episode is my favorite thing is Jesus is DJ Jesus. It's the
Mhm.
second coming, and he's like a douchey DJ, and his like hype man is Judas. And he's like a magician / DJ. So they do like a escape-okie where he does like karaoke but escape artist. And they do is it like Phantoms in the Dark, the Pat Benatar song?
Oh no.
Wow.
It is
Uh,
so good.
Frankenhole was about Dr. Frankenstein unlocking the key to immortality and basically lives in a pocket dimension where various figures from history and pop culture visit him with odd requests.
Okay.
Like, one episode
How
is
did
like,
that not get picked up?
and it's animated in like weird paper models.
Hmm.
And because he's immortal and he made his sons immortal. No, he's immortal. His sons live with him, but his sons are all like in their 90s, but they act like children. And then
Good.
like there's an entire episode devoted to the Grim Reaper showing up to take his kids, but because Dr. Frankenstein has taunted him over the fact that he's immortal so many times, he just refuses to take his kids. He's like, now you're stuck with them forever. I'll never kill them.
Mhm.
And there's an episode where Ron Howard goes to visit him because he wants to. I can't remember the request, but it ends with Ron Howard becoming the most like intimately selfish person in the universe, and like basically turns everybody into a Ron Howard clone.
That's so weird.
It is really weird. And just
I was
reminds me, I started watching Arrested Development this weekend.
Oh, there you go. I don't know. I was really hoping one of you was going to say that Fat Guy on the Internet was your favorite Adult Swim show.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
It was during their weird live action shows thing.
I'm never a fan.
that
of
must be
live
like a
stuff.
really old.
I never liked Tim and Eric. I did not like Tom Goes to the Mayor. I didn't like Saul of the Mole Men.
No, I
it was
didn't like
around the
any of
same
their
time
shows.
as Saul of the Mole Man.
Didn't
My
like,
favorite of their shows was like Metalocalypse and Home Movies, which were both the same guy. It was Brendan Small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Metalocalypse is one of my favorite shows ever.
I saw them live in New York.
Oh,
Best show ever.
that would have been so rad. Did
It's
anybody
like-
die?
Which was the one with Will Ferrell?
Oh, fuck.
Oh,
Fuck, I
I
don't
don't
even
remember
know.
the one with Will Ferrell. What's the other guy?
Oh, the Oblongs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
god, that was so good. I love
Yeah.
that
Well, that
show
was
so much.
that was
I think
picked
it was a
up.
Comedy Central
Yeah,
show.
that was they acquired the Oblongs. Like
Yeah.
peak Adult Swim is all stuff they got elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like the Oblongs, Futurama. Like didn't Adult Swim more or less save Futurama and Family
Yes.
Guy?
It did.
Yeah.
Yes, both of
Well, the DVDs brought back Futurama actually because those were
Yeah.
like mega bestsellers, I guess.
Which, by the
Whatever.
way, if you're me, that show still lives on somewhere because I've never seen the finale and I refuse.
Oh,
I-
the finale is
same.
actually amazing.
I am in a
and-
no. There's no finale.
Yes, there is.
It didn't end, and Twin Peaks didn't end. I haven't seen either finale.
Well, the
I
good
tried-
thing about the Futurama one is just I know you'll not if you don't want to watch it. Like they leave it open.
I know how it ends. I looked into it, so it's an interesting premise. But I can't bring myself emotionally to watch that
Oh,
unfold
it's
in front of
definitely.
my eyes because I've had to watch Futurama end like twice.
Well,
Right.
the most hard Futurama is the dog.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is like
Yeah.
crushing.
And
yeah, that
Twin,
episode.
funny enough, Twin Peaks actually ends in a similar way, implying that like this intimate fight between good and evil is never actually going to end, and that the ultimate message is, hey, guess what? After all this waiting, Twin Peaks has no ending.
Man, fucks
That
his
is
entire
right,
Most
audience.
David Fincher thing
that's-
I've ever heard of, where
yeah.
people wait fucking 2 decades for the show to come back, and David Lynch is like, nah.
Well, they did have an ending, but the co-creator had to go off and write Fantastic Four. So
God damn you. You-
Anyway,
Hey, which
Uh,
Fantastic Four was that one?
The
fucking
first
one
one.
we just watched.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the best one.
No.
Oh,
no,
you're a
no.
monster.
Well, no.
That's-
Of the 3 that are actually Fantastic Four movies,
Here's the thing,
It's-
they're all terrible, so no.
I still
No.
say, and I haven't even seen it, I still say the Roger Corman Fantastic
Yeah.
Four is probably the best.
I
It
feel like
is.
that almost shouldn't count because it was made just to keep the license.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like Hellraiser Revelations, which is only made so Dimension could selfishly hold on to that series for.
Yeah, it like
For-
doesn't count as a real movie.
Well, they're
Yeah.
just Hellraiser Revelations, if you've ever seen it.
No,
Featuring Uncle Pinhead.
I think I've only watched one Hellraiser movie.
Bobby Monahan.
Bobby Monahan.
Remember when they were gonna cross over all the Dimension horror stuff with Jay and Silent Bob? Remember that
What?
world?
Oh,
That was
God,
a
I think
thing.
no.
I'm a
I-
huge Kevin Smith fan. I've never
I-
heard of that.
He's
Fucking
talked
don't.
about that. Not Bob Weinstein, but his brother came. No, is it Bob Weinstein? Yeah, Bob Weinstein came to him and he was like, "You know, we have all these horror movie characters. We have the rights. We should do like
Like a Scooby Doo.
no, like Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman, but with
Oh my
Jay and
god,
Silent
I
Bob."
would love that.
it would have
Wow,
been so
no.
perfect.
If,
They could still do it.
if Hellraiser wasn't dead now, that would have killed it permanently.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
have you guys heard any of the stuff he's talked about for Jay and Silent Bob redo?
No, but I've also heard
It's-
Clerks 3 is dead.
Kirksey
is
is dead
dead.
because the guy that plays Randall is not interested in doing anything.
Yeah,
Well, I
and-
thought
well,
I
he
thought
got
it was like
screwed.
pulling. I thought it was pulling teeth too to get him in Clerks too.
Yes,
It
it
was.
was. He's
Yeah.
been retired.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Also,
yeah,
he wasn't
money
ready-
That's
also.
weird because like he's my favorite part of Clerks 2.
Yeah,
Have you ever seen
So
the movie
fucking
that
good
he
in that
made?
movie. No.
He
Mhm.
made his own movie with the guy that plays Elias. It's the
Huh.
two of them. I have it. I can't remember what it's called. I have it on DVD. It's not bad. It's
right.
actually
Hmm.
that's how that he got Elias into Clerks 2. He made that first.
So
Hmm.
speaking of things we never thought would happen, our first real news story is that Todd McFarlane is actually a fucking robot who was programmed. who
That's
was
not our first
programmed
news
for one-
story.
No,
I
no,
thought it was.
It's
No, we have a
It's
speed
speed
run
round.
story.
Oh,
Yeah, we have a
It's Rick.
speed round story.
There's
Yeah.
the
One.
other press. There's the thing
Might
with
be
Walking
saved best
Dead.
for last.
There's
oh wait, I thought we were saving. Oh, never mind. I
Yeah.
misread the docket. Is it Rick?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are speed rounds because
I mean, they killed his son. They
Hey,
might as well kill him.
Hey, AMC, you're a bunch of dumb fucks.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have never seen, maybe not never, but like I don't think I've seen an entity murder their own golden goose as efficiently as AMC has.
Yeah. I mean,
this is
Well-
literally the definition of milking something to death.
so the story I'm reading makes it sound like he is himself leaving. It's not that they killed him off. I mean, they are going to kill him off, but he wanted to leave.
Yeah.
Which, okay, so we got to think of it from his point of view. How many opportunities just to be in Marvel movies has he had to turn down over the last however many years? How many? Because he lives in Atlanta doing this show where they shoot most of the Marvel movies. Where
He was
the
a-
casting
he was-
happens.
Dude, he was a front runner for BVS Batman.
Yeah. So how
Really?
many things did he have
Yes.
to turn down? How many giant projects
Well, not just that. Like looking
and
at his
opportunities?
person that was his co-star becoming like loved
Yes.
so hard for his role in MCU.
Yeah, and Okoye also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Two of his co-stars went on to become two of the most beloved MCU characters of all time right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So he has to look at that and go, I can stay on this show, which is only going downhill. Like at this point, it
No,
only
and I
is.
heard a leading cause was that he wanted to go do more movies.
Yeah.
It's also going to be a brutal filming schedule, and Atlanta at any time of the year is just like a gross temperature.
Yeah.
In this summer,
So-
it's like 100 degrees.
I am
99.
sure Andrew Lincoln misses getting haircuts and shaving.
Yeah. That's another
And I
thing.
bet
So
he
he's the
also-
opposite of Chris Evans.
I
So
bet
Who's
I
always
bet he
curly
misses
and
his
long
kids
hair
as well.
between film shoots.
I imagine the day he's done doing anything with Walking Dead, he'll just get back to England and just be so happy to have miserable, cold, rainy weather. Just
Yeah.
oh, give me life, give me life.
I'm
I would
British. I
love for him
can't
to-
handle all this heat.
But
It's so long.
like let's kind of I want to poke under the skin at this a little bit because there's a lot of little things that make this super interesting. The fact that like he's choosing to leave, which means A, he sees the writing on the wall.
Yeah. He totally does.
B,
Well, he-
like a lot of recent events have probably soured him.
Yeah.
there is someone else leaving who started this whole trend.
Yeah, what, Maggie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Maggie is also on her way out. Glenn is gone, but his was kind of necessary. And to sustain this show's longevity, you could have had Carl,
Yeah.
But no, they
but
fired
he's
him.
gone too.
Yep.
So now, more or less, the entire cast of the original series of season 1, basically the originals, are all but gone. And I'm sorry, I love Norman Reedus as much as anybody else does. He can't carry a show.
No, he can't.
Oh, I
He
just
can
remembered
carry
we missed.
episodes, but he can't carry a whole show.
No.
We missed another one of his cast members being part of the MCU.
Wait, who?
Punisher, Barenthal.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, who are the three then?
It's him. It's Okoye and Rooker.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Shit, that's right.
Yeah, he died though.
Yeah, but he also owned both of those movies, especially
Yeah,
the
he
second
did.
one.
Yes, that's true.
But
And
and
there's
I,
time
I,
travel.
and
you know,
I
Infinity
know
Stones.
I know people who have said in front of me. I don't know if Rick goes, and this is before this news broke. If Rick went, I wouldn't watch.
Well, yeah, because they haven't done anything to make the show work without him. I mean, I remember when the show first premiered.
And that's my thing. They have built up nothing
Yeah.
in this show since I don't even like.
Well,
They
no, 'cause
stopped
they keep
developing
on doing the
second-
same thing over and
Well,
over.
that's what I was
Yes.
gonna say. Isn't every season the same thing? It's like
Yeah,
you have people,
and
they
like
go a
the only
place.
other,
Every
only
2
suitable
seasons.
replacement, the only other suitable replacement got booted off to the other show, which I've heard is better.
It is.
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, I've always
like,
said like this
what are
show
you gonna-
could work
what are you
without him easily.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they've done nothing to facilitate that at all. They've made a show that is almost dependent on him.
Can I
at
just-
least as
And,
far as
what do
I
you do?
watched it.
You try to coax Jeffrey Dean Morgan into being the lead of a TV show.
He's already done that like 3
Good
times.
fucking luck. He's a movie star. He doesn't need the fucking Walking Dead. He did it because people asked him.
Can I just
Yeah.
mention something about Fear the Walking Dead that they did this season?
Yes.
Sure.
They introduced a character named John Dory, played by Garrett Dillahunt from Terminator: Sarah Connor Chronicles, who
Wait.
was
Oh, that character, yes.
he
Go
was
ahead.
one of the rumored characters to or rumored actors to play Negan, and his
Oh.
character on the show is a former cop, and he is a far better character all around than Rick Grimes.
Well,
Interesting.
Okay, here's the thing with Rick Grimes. You're supposed to like Rick all the time, but we've gone through this is no longer a democracy, this is a dictatorship, to I'm in Alexandria, I'm going to fuck that guy's wife, I'm the kooky sheriff now, thanks for the
The
gun.
thing is, you're not. I am actually in Alexandria.
To oh no, my son, like
Yeah.
you're there's no consistency.
And somewhere in
And,
there,
like-
I'm gonna bite this guy's throat out because
Yeah, and like I love Morgan on paper, but Morgan's like, I'm gonna sit here and mope stoically about how life is precious and we shouldn't. I'll kill every one of you.
I would say the reason why Rick
Or
is
he-
still
Or
on
he
is
goes fucking Rambo on somebody and murders them to murders them to oblivion.
I would say Rick is still on because of their wanting to stay at least somewhat true to the comic origins. But
Well, that is so far out the window now. It's not even
exactly
funny.
with Kirkman suing them, like why do they even care anymore? Just get rid of him. Or how about just end the fucking show? How
Yeah.
about we just do
And-
that?
And the show, which you clearly have no roadmap for. You've set up no end game. You have not given us any indication that you're going to try something new. It's the same thing over and over again, which is why I stopped watching. Oh
Yeah.
no! Did you know people are the bad guys?
Right.
Yeah.
I think this show would have been much better if HBO picked it up when
I
it was
mean,
pitched to them.
I don't know about
Well,
that.
no. HBO wanted to turn into a fucking cop drama with zombies. Okay, let's not.
Wait, what?
That was NBC.
Yes.
That was NBC's
Oh yeah, that's right. One of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it goes down to the problem is if you don't have a ending in mind, which the
Yeah.
book is still going, then you have a problem with these type of shows.
This is
Yeah.
actually like this is worse than the Dragon Ball thing when Dragon Ball was airing because DBZ, the manga and the show were airing and running at the same time, and DBZ would just fucking write filler episodes. The difference is a filler episode is 20 minutes and probably features some, disposable fighting and some
Well-
grandstanding.
The
Or
other
just
thing is, in
Goku
BBC
yelling.
is he did
Yeah.
have endings, and then his producer was like, "Nah, we can keep going. We're making too much money."
Yeah,
Then he'd write
exactly.
another ending, and then they'd be like, "No, we're making too much money." Another, like I think every single time, like, so send it Frieza, then have the first set of androids, and like, those androids are lame. Then another set of androids. No, those
Man,
androids are lame.
You can fucking feel the hard pivot in the Android saga about where that
Yes.
series is going.
It reminds me
Yeah,
more
it's-
of like
it's
that
just-
Lost thing, where like, oh my god, they're just meandering for forever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and like I think someone was it work somewhere else. Someone was like, "Well, Supernatural's been in the air for 15 years." I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't hear about Supernatural like the stagnation of Supernatural seems inoffensive."
No, there are 5 years that are good, and then there are 10 seasons of trash. So, and then, but no, that's a show that's kept alive by the fangirls. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not joking. Like, it's a show where they have a base, and they just do what that base wants, and then
so they
keep-
just
keep
pander
on
to them.
going. Yes,
Which,
they
you know what-
pander
which, you know
so
what?
hard.
If you can survive off of that for as long as they have, go
Mhm.
you.
Yeah,
And Supernatural has never bothered me, offended me. Like it can do whatever the fuck it wants for eternity. I don't care if those two actors do that until they're gray and wrinkled. Knock yourselves down.
I mean, on that
My
end, I
eyeballs-
agree.
But since my eyeballs have invested time in The Walking Dead, it bothers me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want those actors to continue working, but I think that show should end.
Yes.
Honestly,
Well,
but that's me.
I mean, I thought they had potential as horror stars after they both starred in two of my favorite horror remakes of all time
Yeah,
in back-to-back months, and then just like nothing.
dude, I thought so too
Also-
because it was
also
season
Jensen
5.
Ackles. Jensen Ackles is a fantastic Red Hood.
Yes.
Let's throw that out there right now.
Yeah. So that was when the show. That's the thing that happened when the show was supposed to be ending, because the original writer
Oh,
he had an end in mind. He was like, "This is when it ends. This is when I'm not involved in the show anymore, but my name is still there. But this is where I want it to stop." And then they kept going and
please, for
go.
the love of God.
I
And
only liked one episode in season 6, and that was the episode where they went
Here's the
into
thing.
the real world.
Yeah, I continued watching into season 8, I think. There are good seasons after 5, but 5 is when it should have stopped. It should have ended, and those two should have been able to do other things with their lives.
So it's kind of like the Zombie Simpsons comparison, where it's like
Yeah.
at some point the Simpsons died, and what we have is the zombie show,
Mm-hmm.
where it just is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the Simpsons? It is.
Well, so I'm just gonna spoil the show because if you haven't seen Supernatural, you're not gonna watch it because there's too many seasons and it's intimidating.
Yeah, I've fallen behind by a
the
large.
main thrust of the whole show is it all leads to the final showdown with Lucifer, right? Like that's what this whole thing's been leading towards. They build up this long season arc, and it's really great. It's really well done. Season 5 ends with the final confrontation with the brothers and all that, and one of them has to sacrifice themselves in order to
Oh,
save the world
I've
and stop
heard
the
this.
apocalypse.
Yeah.
The next season, they bring him back after he sacrifices himself to
Boy,
save
this
the
sounds- sure.
world.
This sounds a lot like I know, and I know people love Buffy to death, but for me, that show ended when they killed the Master Vampire after he killed Buffy, and she came right back to life within 5 minutes.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that when they had the second Slayer? What's her name?
Faith.
Faith
maybe.
Eliza Dushku.
Elijah Dushku. I was
Faith
gonna say
Elijah Dushku, it's just her real name. Star of Wet,
Well,
game that Alan
think-
owns.
No.
I think even including the finale and that, like, I think Buffy's died like 5 times. So
Well, there's a time that they replaced her with a robot, if I'm remembering correctly.
that was in the comics. If I think that was like in
I
one of
think
the.
that was the show because there's an
Really?
episode. Yeah, because I distinctly remember watching an episode, and I was like 7, I think, where she like jumps
God
off
damn it.
of a building, and then to sacrifice herself to stop like a portal from opening, like the Hellmouth being like opened wide, and she kills herself to stop it or whatever, and then they replace her with a robot for the next like half a season.
I
And
didn't know anything about that.
it's
I don't
like
remember that at all, and I
it's
watched
Spike
a lot
and
of
her
Buffy.
sister, I think, like
Oh,
trying
this
to.
is
Yeah,
that's like the weird part where they brought. It's like, oh, your mom died, and here's your sister we never talked about for 7 seasons.
yeah. And then over on Angel, they're like, "Oh wow, it's sad that Buffy died. I know, isn't it? Hey, weren't you in love with her? yeah, it was. Shouldn't you be there?
See, but then we
Wait,
had
wait.
sex that one time, and then I turned evil.
Well, what about when the real just fucking rip off when they killed Spike and immediately brought him over to Angel?
Oh yeah.
Welcome to the
that was-
Wheaton Zone, everybody.
Yep.
Well, as much as you can make fun of Buffy, like almost every show that's like in the genre does a Buffy-esque thing. All
Oh
the
yeah,
That's true.
no.
Well, they're all
the-
copying Buffy to some
Yeah.
degree. That's true.
Oh yeah, Supernatural would not be 15 seasons deep if Buffy the Vampire Slayer didn't exist.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Oh,
accurate.
flat with like all the other CW stuff copied all the time. Because
Yeah.
Buffy had that amazing episode, the all singing episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was like a singing demon that was hilarious.
And now
I mean,
everybody's got
there's-
to do it.
Yeah.
half of the people who worked on Supernatural, half of them were from X-Files, and the other half were from Buffy.
Yeah, well,
That explains everything about that show.
It's
Yeah,
like
it
all the
does.
other CW shows, like 90% of the people worked on Smallville, and I can't remember what the other
Yeah.
show was.
Well, there's a lot of crossover with all of the WB
Because all that stuff filmed in Vancouver. even
Yeah,
back
so
then.
it's like the same crew on Rain and The 100 and so on and so forth. It's just the same crews.
The 100 is the one that's really like heavy with Smallville alum.
Yeah, I believe it. And
So
DeVoe,
the bottom
because
line
that's
is
where he
that,
was.
That it sucks. I really like that dude, and I wish my first experience with him was not this fucking shit tier villain. So the bottom line is that The Walking Dead should either fucking end or take a break and figure shit out,
I
because
agree.
at this point, it is the most spinning wheels show of any show that has spun its wheels.
Yeah, but AMC's got to make that money, so
Right.
they're.
Not anymore, they aren't.
They're a family-owned
They have-
business.
Whatever
They have,
shows
they
are on
have,
that
they
channel.
have pinned the golden goose down the table and gutted it from throat to groin. Okay.
Oh yeah. No, they
like-
made Fogua
Shit
out of it.
dead.
Yeah.
But those are the
Yeah.
only 2 shows they have now, right?
I believe so.
No, Better Call Saul is also.
Is that still going?
Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
critical hit. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's quite what Breaking Bad was at its height, but
I will watch it eventually, but I actually thought that was over.
The thing is, like, Better Call Saul in some ways is better than Breaking Bad because they've learned all the lessons they needed to from Breaking Bad. But
Also, like
That's-
I think for a viewer, Saul is an easier protagonist to keep up with because he's not an inhuman
Yeah.
monster.
I
Yeah.
could never get into Breaking
I guess
Bad.
We're different. I enjoyed the Inhuman Monster because maybe that's who I am.
Yeah, maybe
No.
maybe that is who you are.
I love Breaking Bad to pieces. But
I
just
do.
Yeah.
I do like Fantastic Four, so
I know.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
I was gonna go there. I was right there.
I know people can't stomach Breaking Bad because Walter White is such a piece of shit.
Yeah,
it's
but the whole
such a
thing-
good show.
it's a character study, though. That's the whole point
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. The whole it's you watch a man go from obscurity into being in control of everything and then losing it all and self-destructing and like a fucking nuke.
Yeah, and especially once you learn the backstory stuff with like that chemical company, you're like, oh, I can kind of get why he's just like doing it.
I guess I could never get into the tone of that show for some reason, but I
It's
love Better Call Saul to death, so it's weird for me.
Well,
That's my experience with it.
The first season of the show is definitely a very lighthearted tone in comparison to the rest of it, and
it
even
gets crazy.
Even by the end of the first season, it starts to get pretty dark because there's the one episode in the first season where he's done making meth and he's still kind of jonesing to go do it, and he happens to be to Lowe's, I think it is, or something like that, and he sees guys buying a bunch of stuff that they're obviously going to go make meth with.
Oh yeah,
and he just says to them like, stay out of my territory or something along those lines.
No, I thought he started explaining to them what to do better.
No, I don't think so.
He first he starts giving them advice, and I think it's to kind of test the waters and see who and what they are.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you can't use this material; it'll dissolve right through, whatever. And then they run out into the parking lot in fear, and that's when he goes outside and goes, "Stay out of my territory."
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was when they finally started to establish what the tone of the show really was.
When does Gus show up in season 2?
Season 3, if I remember correctly.
I think that's when it like takes a real hard turn when he shows up.
Yes.
And I love that character. I love that actor.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
He was great on the Eric Kripke show Revolution.
Oh,
good job,
I'll take your word for it.
Good job.
Yeah.
What?
He,
Revolution was Eric Kripke's follow-up to Supernatural, which was not.
Didn't that star the dad from Twilight?
It did. It was produced by Jon Favreau because they had to get as many names on it as they possibly could.
Jon Favreau directed the pilot.
Let's transition to main news stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
First, back to my bit from 20 minutes ago.
First
Todd
story I
McFarlane
have.
is actually.
Todd McFarlane might actually be a secret genius.
Maybe. I don't.
Or Jamie Foxx is going to regret this.
Okay,
Well,
here's why this is happening. Because Todd McFarlane is actually a robot who's got one prime directive, and that is to make a Spawn movie.
Yes.
And it's going to take as much time and as much energy as possible to do it.
Well, then
And
someone must have.
Even if we were all on our deathbeds, he would still walk up to us and go, "By the way, Spawn movie's finally in production."
Well, from
I
what
guess. Go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say, from what I heard, Jamie Foxx is actually the one who went up to him years ago and was like, I want to play Spawn. And he was like, okay. And he's like, I don't have anything. He's like, well, if you do, I want to play Spawn. And part of his deal with Blumhouse was like, if we're doing this, we talk to Jamie Foxx first. And if he wants to do it, he has it. Which is why this happened so fast.
I kind of wonder if Jamie Foxx did that all those years ago because there weren't many
Black
roles
superheroes
for black superheroes. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it was either this or Blade, and then Black Panther, and that was it.
Okay, and now here's the thing. Because of this and because of Black Panther, this movie has to happen now. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
There can
it was
be
already
no-
happening. It was.
The thing is, what will be interesting is though it's going to enter a kind of section that we haven't seen yet that I think X-Men was wanting to do, which is that superhero, supernatural horror genre
Mm-hmm.
that Hellboy touched on, but it never quite went that deep.
Right. Yeah, it was more celestial and like otherworldly
Fantasy. It was
it was less.
It was more
hard.
cosmic.
Yeah.
It was like Cthulhu-y, but fantasy, but on a very humorous side.
Mm-hmm.
With everything McFarlane's saying, like he wants to be a hard R, like
he
really
wants to treat Spawn like a movie monster, which is exactly what he should be treated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Have
this
you seen
explains,
that? Have you guys seen the? I think it's a French Spawn short film.
Yes,
the one that takes place
yeah.
at like a
In a
supermarket or
fucking
whatever.
And at the end,
dude,
he,
oh my God,
yeah.
Lou. Okay,
Yeah.
it's like this woman and her son are in like a bookstore or something,
It's like a supermarket, I thought.
and like they don't ever show you Spawn. You see like his cape and like fuck tons of fire, and he is not like you. He's just a gigantic shadow, a pair of eyes, and some loose cape tendrils, but
Yeah.
he's fucking terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
The ending, I had to ask what it was, but once I asked, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool, actually. That's
Yeah, and like
interesting."
they reference the Witchblade, and like it's
Well, I
this
was
really
trying
ambitious
not to-
film. Well,
Okay.
Damn you.
yeah, I just,
Hey,
I'm gonna have to Google this and watch it later.
But
But I do know, like, I love the HBO cartoon series.
I think the HBO series is one of the best comic adaptations ever.
I own the DVD box set.
It is
Damn.
phenomenal, and they treat Spawn in a very similar fashion that the short film does.
Yeah.
He's constantly in the shadows, a floating pair of eyes, enveloped in his cloak. Like you barely ever see a full body shot of
Yeah,
Spawn.
if that's what
The
they're
thing-
doing, I'm into this for sure.
Uh,
The thing
Connor-
with the HBO show, though, was it was done by an animation studio that had done something else. I can't remember what, or at least was very similar to, like, I want to say the mid 90s, like
I was gonna say,
Fantastic Four
I
and
thought it
Iron
would've been
Man
like-
cartoons.
I thought it would have been like one of those weird MTV shows.
I don't think so, though, because it was something that
Like
actually.
the head?
What was no? It was like the Max and what was the other Charlize
The Head.
Theron?
The Head and the Max were the only two that really got out of that weird.
Aeon
like-
Flux.
Aeon Flux. That was the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah, but that was an offshoot of Liquid Television, so that wasn't But no, it had a very similar style, if not done by the same production company as some of the other Saturday morning cartoons I mentioned. Anyways,
And that series gets really into the Spawn mythos and kind of actually like fucking Overkill shows up, and who the
Mhm.
fuck is that?
They never got to the gorilla, but they got
no.
Oh, it was HBO's
It's the,
animation studio. They're like in-house animators.
Yeah. I'm on the
guy-
IMDb, so
The
like
guy
if you-
who he's the guy who killed Simmons in the movie, but he's a semi-popular Image character. I can't remember what his name is.
Chapel?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, the one who cut his face off and or he had a skull tattoo on his
Sure.
face, and then
By the
it-
way, Chapel,
Yeah.
member of Bloodstrike.
yeah, wasn't it that he had a tattoo of a skull on his face, and then that part of his face got pulled off or something like that? I
So
can't remember exactly.
They put another skull over his skull, so
Yeah.
now he has a skull on his skull.
Hey
It's
dog,
basically the
I've got a
same thing.
skull on my skull.
What's the character that Moon Knight cut his face off? Because it's basically the same character.
I don't remember. I'm not familiar with that aspect of Moon Knight.
Oh, it's like one of the most famous Moon Knight things where he cut the guy's face off and then wore it.
Oh Jesus
Oh my
Christ!
god, I need to read some Moon Knight. Holy shit.
Oh,
Wow.
you guys! Oh, I thought this is like super famous because that's the whole thing. His wife walks into the bathroom and he's literally like standing there with the dude's face on his face. Like
The
it's not.
only-
It's not what you think.
I'm
The
just
only
picturing-
Moon
I'm
Knight
just
I've
fucking
read is the
picturing-
Warren Ellis stuff.
Just picturing fucking Dwight from The Office, like.
Yeah, no,
Uh, So yeah, we're getting a Spawn movie, and
Yeah.
like it. This is I can't believe I'm in a universe where both the Venom movie and the Spawn movie are happening.
Yeah.
it's the
I,
end time.
I still don't
But
believe
then-
the Venom movie's real.
But then when I
It's an Uncharted movie, guys. I will
When
not.
I want to make myself feel better, I think about the fact that Sony just canceled fucking Silver and Black. So
Yep.
Yep. That's all the attention we're gonna give that. But yeah, what was I gonna say? That actually, this whole story answers a question that I had, because he did. Jamie Foxx does like an interview where he brings people into his trailer, like his personal trailer or whatever, and he just asks them about their job and what they're doing with their life. And he interviewed Chadwick Boseman, and he said something like, I'm gonna have some announcements coming up soon, so we'll be in a similar worlds, let's just say, or something to that effect.
Huh.
And I was like, wait, okay, so who is he gonna be playing? And then this comes out, I'm like, oh well, this is what he was talking about. He's known this for a while, at least.
Yeah. Well, like I said,
couple
like
weeks.
what I heard was like, yeah, he's been wanting to play. Like it makes sense for his age. Like if he was in his like 20s, 30s when Spawn came out, it probably was like, oh my god, it's like the first badass killer extreme 90s black superhero.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we assume he's not going to be in it that much. It's probably going to be like flashback, dream sequences.
It's gonna, yeah,
Wow.
it's gonna be 90%
Well-
voiceover.
well, here's the thing. Ryan Reynolds has shown us that you can take a Hollywood heartthrob
Yeah.
with a marketable face and ugly him up for 2 hours, and people will pay for it.
Yeah, but I don't even think we'll get to there. Like, if they're really going with this horror angle, I don't even think we see him without his mask on. If they're
They'll
really
do it once.
I think we'll see it once. I think
Maybe.
like in Deadpool we'll
As
see
like a
like the
reveal.
full
Well,
naked burn.
okay, then to that regard, right back to Ryan Reynolds, because when he's not uglied up, he's in a mask.
Yeah.
And what is
Yeah.
the big thing that superhero movies just could not resist doing in the 90s? Taking the
Yeah.
fucking mask off.
The one thing I'd say is that technology helps this now is that mask work that you see in Spider-Man and Deadpool with the eyes.
Yeah.
I think that will really help both this movie and Venom.
Yeah.
That new innovation.
I think
Yeah.
a model for this would be the original Predator. And if you think about that movie, like how much do we see of the Predator's face in that movie?
Yeah, it's
5
not till the very
minutes?
end.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, it depends on how they want to write. Is he fighting just thugs, or are they putting him like up against another supernatural being?
So the sound of it is everything I've heard. It's like a condensed version of The Wire, but Spawn is there, and he shows up and he just murks people.
So I would say it's probably going to be like an origin story with like an opening at the end of like, oh, here's like what we're being opened up.
I would
into
actually
this-
like this to skip over Al Simmons' origin entirely, or at least briefly mention it, and give us a world where Spawn already exists.
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe
you have
somebody
cops who-
discovers his origin. Maybe
Yeah,
there's a
Yeah,
reporter or
and
something.
you have cops who are like, "Hey, does anyone want to explain why we have thugs who are getting ripped the fuck up in some
Yeah.
alley down like 3 blocks away?"
Well, all I want to do, like, all I want is I want a live action version of Redeemer, which is
Yes.
like his villain who is actually an angel, and that is,
I have that toy somewhere.
I do too.
Yeah, he's the one who has like a sword on his hand
Yes.
or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's blue and gold, and he has like a
Yep.
gold spike. But it's like the hilarious thing where it's like, oh, the bad guy's an angel and the villain's like a demon.
Yep.
I mean, the
Yeah.
good guy's the demon.
In Spawn Armageddon, he turns into a giant sword. So that's a thing that happened.
I also
Yeah.
own that game.
Kidding me.
That was an original Xbox game, right?
It was a Xbox and PS2, I believe.
Yep.
Alan, maybe you can answer that.
Ah, damn it! You stepped on my next line. I had chicken in my mouth.
Yeah. Because I remember playing that one, and there was another Spawn game before that where you got to play the different spawns through time.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
Dreamcast game, I thought.
Is that
I
the
think it was
fighting
like
game?
Dreamcast
where you,
and PS1. No, it was like an
No.
action RPG.
Okay, I'm thinking
Oh,
of the
no,
like
then that
Street
was-
Fighter one, where you like it's literally like Street Fighter controls and level design, but Spawn skins. Not good. Not good.
No.
No, the one I was talking about, you get to go through the cowboy, the medieval,
Ooh.
current day, and something else.
The best Spawn game is Soul Calibur 2. All right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Connor, was the fan film you were talking about Spawn the Recall?
Wait, what?
Spawn the Recall?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. It's
Yeah,
actually it's actually pretty awesome.
it's amazing. Go figure that both the Hellraiser origin short film and the Spawn short film are better than the ending of those live action properties.
Because the producers don't know what they're doing. What was that? Huh? What? Huh? Okay. I think we're good on Spawn for now, unless somebody has a final thought.
I believe the game I was talking about was called Spawn the Eternal.
Nice.
It was on PS1.
Okay.
Oh.
Because the one that was on Dreamcast was more like it was actually an adaptation of an arcade game that they were supposed to be coming out with. So it was more of a run and gun shooter.
Yeah, this was more of a like action RPG.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Like I kind of like you would go through a world and then there'd be like a boss at the end, but it was a 3D trying to find.
I'm shocked McFarlane hasn't gone to fucking Warner Interactive or who does Arkham? Fucking
Rocksteady.
or
I did
Rocksteady
see-
and been like, make a fucking Spawn game. I will give you the license. Just make it, because
Yeah.
that it would. I mean, it's a skin. Like I'm surprised there isn't a Spawn skin for Arkham. Because
There is, but you need the PC version.
see the version that nobody plays.
Well, it's a mod created independently. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm talking about an official one, like where you have like chains that come out or whatever. Because
Well, I've also said that Arkham City is the best Spider-Man game ever made too.
right. Yeah. Totally. But again, like the fact that hasn't happened already, it's kind of crazy.
I'm ready
anyways,
for the world to embrace Spawn all over again.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be okay with it.
That is the game.
I feel bad.
Lou.
I
That is,
feel
in
bad
fact,
for
the
anyone
game.
who's like, wow, the Spawn movie's gaining some popularity. I want to see if I can jump into the comics. Oh no, it's 800 issues and it's never been restarted.
Yeah, and
least
they don't have
respect-
an easy way to read it either.
Hey,
It's the
respect for
same continuity.
hey, but I'd rather have that than no new number ones every 2
Oh,
years.
I trust me. Like
They
I
did
think
reboot
if
it.
anything, you just have to be patient to get into Spawn. But like, it's absolute madness to try to keep up with like
Yeah.
Marvel and DC.
They did.
There's
They did
there's a
their
lot of
ultimate.
there's a lot of great Greg Capullo art in there.
Yes, because that's where he started. But they did like an ultimate version because I think they did something called Hellspawn. And it was like a new. It wasn't Al. It was like another Spawn.
Right.
Well, no. Oh no, I'm thinking of Tales of the Hellspawn, which was just like side stories, and sometimes it wasn't directly involving Spawn. It was actually pretty good.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of because they did one that was like not involving Al at all that you could just jump into.
Yeah, I'm not
And I
sure.
know it was Hellspawn.
I don't know. It's been years since I even thought about Spawn.
But I do remember in the game I was talking about, the last level is that you start fighting angels,
Oh,
and you're just wrecking angels, and I believe you end up in heaven.
Nice.
interesting.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm ready for more Spawn.
Yep.
What's next?
Okay, next one I have is Lock and Key has been picked up by Netflix.
Phantom Zone
yes.
sequel
Now,
story.
now this is not the same Lock and Key exactly that we reported on a little while ago. It is the same team, same people, with the exception of the director of It, Andy Muschietti. He is not directing because he is directing It too. So, yeah, go figure. But the show has been picked up by Netflix. Again, same creative team, new pilot, starting over from scratch. So
I hope it's good. Oh God, I hope it's good because
This just tells me more that like, oh, they see the writing on the wall that Marvel's gonna bail on Netflix,
yeah,
and they have
Yeah.
to fill those gaps.
yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. Like I would be more pumped that there's like each of these streaming services puts out their own
Yeah.
comic things.
yeah.
Because I'd rather have a lot of these things be TV shows or like that format than be movies.
Well,
And-
you'll be glad to hear that I just found out that Cinemax Late Night is picking up the Savage Dragon.
Right.
Nice.
Oh well.
God
damn.
At least I know I'll never have to see it then.
It
Well,
would have
and-
been,
and
it would have been
here's
more
the thing.
realistic if you said Pornhub.
I mean, hey, with what Pornhub's been doing recently, not that far off. What was I gonna say? And with Netflix likes to keep it in the family. Like you'll notice that they made one Stephen King adaptation, and then they made like 3 more immediately afterwards because they got real close with Stephen.
'Cause I thought he has a deal with Amazon now.
He might
Yeah.
now, but
I thought they're doing a show called what's the town that everything is in his books?
It's not Derry.
No, that's
it's
Hulu.
yeah,
Oh, it's Hulu.
yeah, because
Okay.
Hulu's the one who did 11/22/63.
so
Yeah.
Hulu and Netflix have that Stephen King. They have it on
Universe.
brand.
Because I know the guy that does the Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith. He's one of the writers on that show.
Yes, that's
Mark
that's
Mark Bernardin.
Yeah, Bernardin
it's
is he's a head
Castle
writer
Rock.
on that show.
Yeah, Castle Rock. That was what I was thinking of. Yeah.
But yeah, like Netflix does a lot of Stephen King now again because they released like I don't know how many within a matter of weeks of each other. They did Gerald's Game, and then like a couple weeks later they did 1922, and then they announced some other stuff that they're working on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember what they announced though. That's the problem. But I know that they announced some of the things. But they did a good job with those. And with Joe Hill doing this, if Lock and Key is good and him being involved, Joe Hill might have like a new home at Netflix now with other stuff that gets adapted.
That would make me so happy.
And that's just how Netflix likes to do it. Like if you get along well with them, they will just give you other stuff. That's why David Fincher, on top of Mindhunter, is working on other stuff and planning out and plotting out some other stuff apparently. So yeah.
Well, I mean, he also was involved in a game of House of Cards.
Yeah.
Fincher, yeah. So that explains where he got his start, at least, with them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm happy to hear this. Carlton Cuse still gives me a little bit of trepidation because not because of Lost, because of The Strain.
What's wrong with The Strain?
Al, it's gone downhill.
Alan.
It's gone downhill so badly. But I'm sorry if you still like it, but no.
I've never finished season 2.
Wait, the show is still going?
No, it ended with season 4.
Okay.
Good. Because when that little boy, I'm just going to spoil The Strain right now. When the little boy lets a nuclear missile go off because he's angry at his dad, That's when I was
Whoa,
like, fuck
wait a
this
second.
show.
Fucking Ephraim's kid?
Yes, he gets pissed at Ephraim,
Oh,
and he
I knew
lets
I was.
a nuke go off.
I
Wasn't
knew I
that-
hated that little
But
shit.
wasn't that the end of the second season? Where
At the
like
end
the
of the
nuke
third
had-
season. Which,
Okay, I couldn't
here's the
remember.
thing. I like the third season, actually. The second season was kind of iffy for me. I like the third season quite a bit until they get to the ending, and it's like, oh, you sons of bitches, you should have just ended the show. You should have just ended it, because they had the Master dead to rights. He was in a silver coffin. They were going to fucking bury him in the bottom of the ocean. Everything was done. It was over, and then Ephraim's kid fucks it all up, and he's just
Well, no.
terrible.
He did that because the wife got killed.
Mm-hmm. Which is so fucking dumb, because the kid knows that she's a fucking vampire.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, in the books, because I read all of them in like a 2-month period, and they went progressively downhill too, just like the show did. At the end of the second book, they actually did set off a nuke, and like the world after that is a horror show that the vampires are running and basically using humans as cattle. So
That sounds awesome.
I mean, that's set up in the...
That's pretty much
So
how
it's like-
season 4 is.
like-
It's set
the
up in
end
the
of
show,
Blade.
but it's just it's the way that they did it.
Yeah.
I
And at
never
the-
liked the recast of the kid either. He was just...
Same.
Ugh.
I like the first actor.
He
the guy.
had that terrible face that you just wanted to punch,
Yep.
like that little kid. The
Yep.
recast, at least.
I see. Here's my thing. My overall enthusiasm in the strain like actually dipped when the Master was no longer like a massive practical effects wonder of just fucking long ass fingers and ears. Like it was so fucking cool to look at.
Mhm.
And then he's replaced by boring metal singer guy.
Right.
Oh, you mean what's his face from
Cassie.
Deadpool 2?
Yeah, Black Jack.
Black Tom Cassidy.
Black Tom. Black Jack.
No fucking way.
Yeah, same dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
you killed Black Tom.
That
you
show
racist.
started so strong. Like when
It
when
did.
when Cassie, when his genitalia falls off.
Yes.
that was oh god.
Like with the exception of who is Hacker Girl McAustralia.
Oh yeah, I don't remember her name, but yeah.
Whatever her name was. Yeah, she was not in the books because Ephraim's partner actually lasted the whole way through the
And
series.
my favorite character was what's his nuts, fucking big
Icor's?
dude.
Oh, fucking
Oh,
Russian.
Fett.
Yeah, Fett. Yeah,
Yeah.
Fett's great.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah. They just made so many mistakes towards the end
I
of
didn't
season
realize how
3.
much I liked that actor until I went back and like kind of in my head like, oh, he's been like my favorite part in a whole bunch of shit movies. Like,
He's been in a lot of weird like Netflix originals. Like there's one with a guy like looking at a tree or whatever. It's just
I've seen
Looking at
that.
a
I watched that movie. It's great, right up until the
oh,
ending.
it is.
Um,
Okay,
yeah,
I might have
it's
to
a-
watch
it's
it.
He was.
It's a-
he was
it's a
also
pretty-
in Legion.
It's a pretty okay horror movie, and then the ending is offensive. He's in Legion. He is in Wolverine. He is in
Yeah.
Walking Tall. He is in. And it's weird. Like you see him in other movies, you're like, that guy is huge.
Yep.
And then you put him next to The Rock, you're like, he is very small.
Wait, he was in Legion? Who did he play in Legion?
No,
He is,
not.
Oh, that Legion.
Yeah,
Alright.
no, he shows up.
the one with
he
Paul
shows up-
Bettany.
He shows up as
Okay.
Gabriel to fight Paul Bettany.
Oh, he was the
Oh,
Blob?
that's right. Yeah.
Wait, he's the guy that
Sure.
played the Blob in the Wolverine movie, right?
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Because he got all
Really?
He got all fat.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh,
but
blah,
But
blah.
back to Lock and Key real quick. I'm hoping that if Netflix is going to be smart, and hopefully the writers and producers of the show will be too, that they'll do each season like the story arcs from the comic.
yeah.
Because I think there were 5 or 6 story arcs to it, and that's the perfect amount because you can
Right.
tell the story perfectly that way.
I'm into that.
I don't know how familiar any of you are with the
I know it by
idea of what
name.
Lock and Key is. Okay.
I-
Yeah, because the idea is that there's these different keys that do different things. Like there's one that can make you a giant. There's one that can unlock anybody's head so you can take out memories. Like it's really interesting concept and it plays out really well. And there's actually the very end of it has a Cthulhu tie-in too.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Lock and Key, but I'm sure once this show, or probably hopefully before the show gets rolling, I'll know more. So,
I mean, you will
Yeah.
because we'll watch the trailer for the show. So
Mhm.
Well, no, I will start reading. Is what I will.
You
Right,
should.
yeah.
You really should.
I will
It
too.
might actually. Well,
At some point.
if any of you have the availability to check, there's an app called Hoopla that you can actually take. If your library participates with it, you can take up to 5 books out a month, and they have a ton of graphic novels in there too.
Hoopla's good.
Unfortunately, my library is stuck in the 1950s.
So yeah,
Well,
Is
I
there a
checked.
county library, Al? Near you?
Yeah, because that's what I did. My local one didn't do it, but like the county did. But they don't
Well,
have
yeah,
any
that's-
graphic novels, which sucks.
When I say county library or local library, I mean just it participates with your county library because like
Yeah.
my library card works at any of the libraries in my county. So
I know
yeah.
both of mine I was able to sign up for online, like day of, and check.
Mhm. Oh man, that sucks. Anyways,
Okay. Are we good on Lock and Key, or did anybody have a final thought on that?
I just hope it's good.
I'm excited because Joe Hill, even though I hated horns, I trust this man for some reason.
I don't know. I'm hyped to talk about more '90s comics.
Yeah.
All right.
Your hate only makes me stronger.
Oh God, we got you and Eric should just have your own show then. Because
Christ, the amount of spin-offs Lou just comes in here and just accidentally starts.
I mean,
It's my superhero name. The
It's only
spin-off.
crazy because the number of spin-offs that we've intended to do versus the number of accidental spin-offs is just it's much higher. So yeah. Okay. We good? Next story.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is gonna be a shock to everyone. The Crow. It fell apart. Aren't we so
Again?
surprised?
Looks
Well, no,
like
because
it looks like it can rain all the time.
Right.
I was gonna say it was the Chinese mafia. They will never let.
And it's so weird because like everything was on track like a month ago or like a week ago or some bullshit. Like they were
Yeah,
like
it
everything's
was.
going.
Someone literally posted, I think, in Phantom Zone or in Pixels, and like we were talking, and then like 2 hours later, it was canceled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's the
Weird.
thing: like, how many proverbial signs from God do you need to stop trying to make this fucking movie?
I don't
Nobody
know.
wants it. Nobody asked for it. Nobody is continuing to ask for it. So that's my other thing. Like, what old, out of touch, fucking cigar swinging executive is like? I gotta tell you something. The kids, they love the Crow.
Well,
they love the
it's-
Crow, man. We gotta bring the
so-
Crow back.
Listen,
Like,
The Crow is
listen.
very popular.
What
The
do we own
son
at
of
the comic
Bruce
book?
Lee made a good movie a few years ago. I don't know. I'm 92. I'm not aware of the passage of time. But we need to remake this.
That accent, nobody can understand you.
This is ripe for possibilities to remake. Now, excuse me, I need to go get my 3rd blood transfusion of the day.
Thank you, sir. Now, here's
every,
the thing.
every executive is fucking Dino.
Yes. Well, okay, so like all evils in the world, this is a Sony project, and this is Sony's fault for this continuing.
You can't believe anything that they say.
No, you
No.
can't. Them
Because
and
they
Warner
basically-
Brothers are in the doghouse with me for a
Well,
long
them
time.
Warner Brothers, I feel like consistently like it. They treat announcements like bomb threats.
Mhm.
Like
Well, Sony's
we're
even worse
gonna
because
announce. Please don't.
I feel like Sony at this point is waiting for the Fox deal to go through to kind of see how much they would be worth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many rumors about them trying to sell their film division for forever.
Yeah, and Sony can
Well,
do it.
It's Japan that wants to ditch the film division, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's the only part of Sony that doesn't make money.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's the only part that they haven't sold already that doesn't make money. But yes.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because
It's-
they've
it's
sold
anytime-
other things also. They sold what the fuck was their laptop? Like they sold
Vio.
Vio. Yeah, they sold Vio, which is just a laptop brand for like some $1 billion number or whatever.
I'm sure that they made money on that because at
Yeah.
this point, if you're not Apple,
Yeah.
Did they ditch their TV division too?
No, their
Yes.
TV is part of their movie division.
Yeah.
So
you mean that like they didn't make money on Powers? because I was the only person
Well,
that watched it.
yeah, that was through the PlayStation Network though, or something like that, right? So
It was
Yeah,
supposed to be
now-
it was the first.
yeah.
I'm
it was a
sure
co-production.
anytime any of the overlords in Japan like talk about selling the movie division, Amy Pascal is screaming like a banshee, and like somebody turns to dust, and they're like, "Oh, we shouldn't do this." All right, let's go back.
no.
See, I
First of
wonder
all,
if she
she screams like a banshee and someone turns into a sandwich.
to me, I feel like she gets a free sandwich for every 5 senpakus that she causes.
Seppuku,
Yes.
Seppuku.
yeah, Senpaku.
I've
Hey,
never heard
man,
it
I'm the
called
one
that
that's I'm the one that's Asian, so don't
See,
correct
that's
me.
why I let him. That's,
way. We
see,
should
I don't
bring
know
John
why-
Seiler in for this.
I don't even know why you. I don't know why you fools even spoke up, because that's why I let him just say what he said. I was like, I'm just as white as everybody else here. I can't speak up.
I mean,
It's more
that's
for
true.
grammatic purposes, is why I corrected
You
you.
could
I
have
don't know.
added. You could have added an X in there that's not present visually, and okay.
Hey,
I mean,
you
it
guys
wouldn't.
could have been in that movie with Jared Leto. What was it called?
Yeah.
Ow!
God damn it!
Ugh.
You have to remind me that
Man,
exists.
I have struggled to come up with people's names on this show for 6 months, and I just came up with that title with very little resistance.
Oh God.
I think it's because I'm sitting next to. I just noticed it. A framed poster signed by Todd McFarlane, and I just realized it's giving me power this episode.
Right. Yeah, sure. That's what's happening.
I can
I
draw a
was,
picture
I
of
was
it.
gonna bring up something that would give Eric more power, but I decided
No,
I'm
please
just not.
don't.
I'm not going to.
Thank
Just
you.
for the
Bob.
record-
Encourage me.
Just for the record-
Encourage me.
I did not buy this poster. I won it at a con.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's like that nun poster that I have for The Conjuring 2 that I can't hang up because
The thing I
Because-
was gonna reference was
Because I don't want to turn my lights on one day and be startled.
Valak is just there in the corner, and it's so
See, this is-
terrible.
This
the
is where I
fucked
wish.
up thing about the Conjuring 2 poster that like is kind of like it's the all-encompassing poster. I didn't even know the nun was on that poster.
Same
until you,
here.
like blow it up.
Until I was holding it in my hand, I was like, "Holy fucking shit!" and I closed it. Like I saw, it was real bad.
I not to turn this into a bit about the Conjuring, but like the fucking sequence in the second movie when the painting runs
Mhm.
at Vera Farmiga is one of the most unsettling things I've ever seen
It is.
in my life.
Which it sucks
I
that they
would-
sold that during the trailer for it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I never saw that in trailer.
Oh, okay.
I was
Well, then you went in
I was
fresh.
robbed of that from trailer wise, and then like that I was not okay for about 10 minutes.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
And it's worse because that scene takes place in the daytime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which just oh god.
Yeah.
Anyways, The Crow. I don't understand. Like, because even if this movie had happened, what are you gonna do with it?
Here's the thing, like
that's
every Crow sequel except the first sequel is dog shit.
Yeah.
Well, even if this was a reboot, like going back to when we did our episode on The Crow, like one of us had said something that movie was the perfect time capsule,
Yeah.
and that's
that
exactly
is-
what made that movie what
Yeah,
it was.
It's
The
a
Crow
film version of.
comic and the Crow movie are both locked in the time period
Yes.
they were released.
Yeah.
They are a visualization of 90s angst.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hell, I mean, the comic was the mid to late 80s, if I
Yeah.
remember
And it
correctly.
Yeah.
captures that so well too.
Yeah. It's that punk goth, like angsty pre-grunge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
because
don't.
a big
It's the Cure, but with the superhero powers.
Yeah,
Park-
it is very actually it's like you said, The Cure, like that's fucking it. That's
Yeah.
it right
Yeah.
there.
well, and that's a huge part of what made the original Crow movie what it was the soundtrack.
Right.
Like, it's inexorably linked with that movie, and
Mhm.
you can't, you don't have anything that's going to work.
Yeah,
and I mean, you
know,
can't
come
put.
on! Don't you want to hear a cover of "Burn" by the fucking Bad Wolves?
No.
Like-
Burn by Imagine Dragons. That's what we'll.
Well, here's
do.
my question.
Fuck you! Fuck you so much.
To me, and Connor, I think you can speak to this. What
I
lasted
physically
longer?
recovered from that one.
I feel like more people know that makeup for Sting than they do for the Crow.
Well, and like here's the thing about that is that like
I know
walked
Sting
in the
took
back one day, and a drunk as fuck Scott Hall was like, "Hey, Steve, you should do the Crow."
So you mean Scott Hall?
Yeah. As far as I know, that's how that started. And Sting has kept it ever since. He did a mild Joker variation in TNA, but we're not going to talk about that for various reasons.
I did not know that. And
It
now,
is-
now you
it
gave that
is-
to me, and
it
I
is-
hurt.
It is peak bad. Okay, like
Well,
it's
TNA,
like
TNA
like-
is like all the '90s things that happen.
like there's bad wrestling. Like when wrestling's bad, which is most of the time, it's just bad, and you're like, whatever. But then when like it's bad to the point where if someone you knew walked in on you watching it, it's somehow worse than them walking in on you jacking off. Because the amount of questions you have to answer is exponentially higher.
Was this pre or before, or was this when Russo was there?
I don't know. That
Right.
he comes and goes like the fucking wind. But like I don't understand.
Yeah.
Here's about the thing with like your question about like what are you gonna do with it? They're not gonna do a fucking thing with it. Is what
No.
they're gonna do with it. It's gonna
No.
come out. It'll probably sell like death,
Yeah.
and then they'll abandon it.
Yeah. And
And I go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, I'm not gonna say, unless you guys want to hear it. There are things that you could do with the Crow that
No,
would
go
be
for it.
interesting. All
I
right.
would say, yeah, go for it.
I've been thinking about this. I actually thought about this like the day after we recorded that review. I was thinking, well, the Crow presumably has existed for like a long time. Like this crow that brings people back from the dead. What if you did one set during like the witch trials or something like that, or you did one set
So,
in the 1800s?
Or even World War II, World War One.
Do the Assassin's Creed and just basically pick an interesting setting and
Yeah.
apply your concepts and ideas there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you expand the the universe and the rules of how the Crow works, but you're not messing with anything to do with Eric Draven. And you could even go for one of the seasons. I would do this as a TV show. Netflix, obviously.
So it'd be like, I feel like it would be like, I feel like
Yeah.
it would look like Dark Angel, but with that face paint.
Yeah. And like you can do a whole season that's just the original comic book verbatim. You keep that 80s haircut and you just go full on that. You could do that, but you could go any millions of other variations with the story. You could make the Crow a woman. You could do whatever you wanted with it.
Oh,
just
there
as a
was-
hang on.
person in the
Here's-
face paint.
Dude, make the
There
Crow
was-
woman and have her fucking hunt down Jack the Ripper.
Well, there
Mhm.
actually was one of the comic series that there was a female Crow.
Yeah.
And that's the thing then. It's also mixing in the movie mythos because in the comic, the Crow was just Eric's conscience,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah. What's the whole thing? That movie got optioned, I think, after like 5 issues of the comic, something crazy
Something
like
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like barely a thing, and they were like, "Holy shit, we can make this a movie now."
hmm
And like the mythos around that movie is really built around the fact that the star was killed in the making of the making, like
And
The movie's-
here's the thing: I don't think the movie would have underperformed had Brandon Lee not died, because I think the movie really kind of stands on its own merits. It's really fucking good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it wouldn't
It
be the
wouldn't
cult,
no,
the cult
I-
thing that it
I
is.
think it would have turned Brandon into a moderate, legitimate action star, not this direct to DVD
Oh,
bullshit
absolutely.
he
No,
was stuck on.
Yeah.
He'd be one of the '90s biggest action stars.
Yeah,
like
he was.
Yeah.
That's what people forget. Like, don't realize. Like, even though he was Bruce Lee's son, he was a no one.
He was a fucking
Yep.
nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he would be somewhere in between. If we consider Bruce Willis to be the biggest action star of the '90s, he would be somewhere in between Bruce Willis and Van Damme, probably.
Wait, Bruce Willis
Yeah.
is your biggest action star of the '90s?
He's a more legitimate Van Damme.
Yeah. He's.
Yeah.
I was gonna
who's
say
bigger, Lou?
Schwarzenegger.
Of the '90s, you know what I mean, Lou. Schwarzenegger
I don't know
is
why,
the
but-
'80s. He epitomizes the
Yeah.
'80s. I'm talking about
The 90s was his decline.
yes.
Maybe
They're
I
not-
have a
I
hard
know.
time separating in my mind when the '80s ended and the '90s start.
Unless you
I-
want to argue how good Eraser was to us,
Right.
which it wasn't.
I mean,
I don't know
there
why,
were good
but
ones
Steven
in the
Seagal
90s,
just popped
but,
in my head.
but like Bruce Willis owned
Maybe
the
Stallone.
90s to some
I feel like
degree.
maybe Stallone was a good closer. Him and Bruce Willis.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Stallone didn't really have that many big action hits in the '90s. Like he
No.
tried with Cliffhanger, but like the only thing I can think of would be
Don't you
Demolition
downplay
Man.
Demolition Man?
No,
It's
Demolition Man
Guys,
was what I was
Demolition
going
Man,
to
like,
quote.
And here's the
Yeah, but
thing:
don't forget about Judge Dredd.
Wesley Snipes is bigger than
Please
Stallone
forget about that.
at that
Yeah.
point. Like he's
Yes,
much bigger than
he's
Stallone
absolutely
at that point.
bigger.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah, that
he's
was
a
before he
more
went crazy.
recognizable-
That
Well,
was
yeah,
before he didn't pay his taxes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
um,
but Brandon Lee was a fucking nobody and wasn't
Mhm.
making money anywhere.
Brandon Lee would have been Deacon Frost if he had lived.
Ooh.
What happened?
Yeah.
He would have been Deacon
I think he would
Frost.
have been he would have been better than that.
Well, no, you know what I mean. Though. That's
Honestly,
the kind of
here's
thing
the
he
thing.
would have done. Though.
I
He
know
could
for a
have
fact
easily.
that Brandon Lee was, I think, among the original names for an on-screen Liu Kang.
Yes, he was
Yeah.
100%.
100%, yeah, totally.
Because he wasn't as good of a martial artist because he was bigger than his dad, but like physically bigger. I mean, but yeah, he
Mhm.
still had a martial arts background.
Honestly, I think he's a better actor than his father because he is the representation of fucking sadness in The Crow.
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, he's better trained. Like his dad was a martial artist that got thrown
Yeah.
into movies. He's the
Yeah.
guy that grew up with a dad who was a martial artist that trained acting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. He could have been in a lot of it. He could have been Chang-Chi, which is just his dad, but still. Yeah, there's a lot of things that he
But
could have done.
I don't understand this attachment to try to keep fucking reviving this film. Like, we don't need it. We didn't need RoboCop.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And look,
No.
at RoboCop.
I mean, like, if
It's-
you remove Sony just needing money and thinking that they need to chase a franchise wherever they can find it, if you remove that, there's no reason to do this movie
See,
whatsoever.
I see it as a different thing. I think we're in that time period where people who grew up in the 90s, like me and you, Connor, are in that age group that they're trying to sell nostalgia to. And the problem is that the 90s are terrible,
Yeah.
and there's no nostalgia to them.
I mean, that's fair. But they've been trying to do this for years, though. Even
Yeah,
before.
but we've seen the 80s movies, like the
Yeah.
remakes and the stuff for forever. Now we're getting into like, oh, well, if that age gap is now things
Yeah.
from the 90s, and it's just not good because
Well,
the 90s were extreme.
I mean,
and guns and pouches.
I think you're partially right, but they've been trying to do this to Highlander and this since
Yeah.
like 2009. Since
No,
before even
yeah, well,
70s
Highlander-
nostalgia.
Highlander
The Highlander
never
is something
stopped.
else that like really, like, you really have this attachment to the Highlander. Like, the Highlander ended on such a weak ass note. Like, everyone's good. We don't need it.
Yeah.
Well, which one? Like they end it at every single movie.
Fucking Endgame that had
Is it the one with Edge?
The one with the
Was
TV
that the one
show
with
guy in it?
yeah.
Oh, was that one with Mario Van Peebles in it?
No, that's the one with Edge from the WWE.
Oh.
Right?
And it had
Christopher Lambert and the TV
Christopher-
guy.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert and Paul something. I can't remember his
Right.
name.
Set
Paul
before
Blart
the
Mall Cop.
first movie because that's what people wanted.
That's what they wanted. Yeah. And to be brutally honest, like the first Highlander was an interesting idea, but it's not that great a movie.
I mean, here's
Well,
the thing.
I think it's better if you ignore all the sequels and other bullshit,
I totally agree with that.
yeah.
Now,
especially
Eric,
the
if
second
you-
one.
If you just take
Mhm.
the basic concept, you live forever and there's a competition.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea.
Well,
Automatically.
no, that's what I said. Like outside of the story, like
Fucking bunch of immortals run around and cut each other's heads
Well,
off.
They
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
one of the best parts of that movie is the fact that they show them fucking around.
Yeah.
They showed it
Yeah.
several times when they're like, was it the duel? And the guy shoots him like 5 times when they're
Mhm.
like in the 1800s or whatever.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like,
But it's when
there's
they-
a-
In the second one, when they introduce the aliens, then it all goes to shit.
I've watched that second one.
Was it Planet Zeitgeist or Zeist?
Planet Zeist. And here's the thing. I did not have enough alcohol in my system to watch that movie because
there's a cut where they get rid of it all,
yeah, the renegade cut.
and then the plot makes even less sense because they had to bring back Sean Connery
that
somehow.
that second movie made me so angry because it made me like the second one less. The only good moment in that whole movie that's really fucking good is when Christopher Lambert goes from an old man to a young man and the music is like really good and it blares and it's his Highlander theme and he gets hit by a truck
Neat.
and then he turns young and then the truck explodes. It's that's a cool moment. The rest of the movie's just dog shit. Just really, really bad. Sean Connery's walking around with like a play sword for like a theater play, like Shakespeare. Like, he's walking around with. He's walking
he
around
interrupts
with
an
one of those
actual
swords.
play, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He reappears in Scotland during a show of Hamlet, and then he takes Hamlet's play sword from him and walks off. And he hails a taxi and he pays him with gold that he still has on him.
Because he is a Scottish guy playing an Egyptian who went to
yes,
Japan to get a sword, then went to Spain.
Sure.
yes, yeah.
Because he's Ramirez, or is he a Scottish guy playing a Spanish guy who went to Egypt and got a sword from Japan?
Jesus Christ.
I think we're supposed to assume he started in Egypt, but
But his name is Ramirez.
yes, I know.
So some part of me is offended, and I don't know which part.
I think he changed his name at some point. I mean, because McLeod has also changed his name. I don't remember what his fake name was in the movie.
Well, that's because it's a French guy playing a Scottish guy
Right.
living in America.
Yeah. Yeah. There are problems with that movie. Like, aside from the ending sword fight, all the fights are bad in that movie. They're all poorly choreographed and they look
Well, the
terrible.
thing is,
They
like,
are.
and everyone's like, that's a movie where I think if you recast it, it could, like,
Yes.
the concept of that original movie could work as something cool.
Well, didn't they want Ryan Reynolds to be in a?
He was
They
gonna-
wanted a million.
He was
people.
going to be in
Yeah.
it, yeah. That was
Yeah.
that was before Hollywood decided they were done with him, and then, but also before he released that Deadpool clip, which
Yeah.
brought him
I feel
back.
like Bradley
Yeah.
Cooper has been attached to anything in the '90s because he's Bradley Cooper.
Right. Because
I know he was attached to Crow.
His face is
Oh,
very.
God.
Yeah, no, Bradley Cooper's been someone attached to Crow. DiCaprio, I think, has been attached to Crow.
As a
I do
Keanu has
remember
been
that.
attached
than
to
anything,
Crow.
But yeah.
It's-
Keanu's
here's the-
like
here-
almost too good of casting if it was 15 years ago.
And
Yeah,
fucking Haro from Boardwalk Empire. He was gonna play the Crow at some point. Fucking Jack
Here's the fucking thing. Like, the Crow, along with Akira, in the realm of Hollywood, please stop trying. Like, no,
Mhm.
please, really stop trying.
right.
Because I'm getting
Yeah.
I'm so sick of hearing about the Akira movie falling apart because nobody in that entire industry has the ability to not direct it, but actually put it in motion and
Mhm.
not fucking take a step back and make some silly compromises.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
never going to happen.
Akira can't exist as a feature film because it doesn't make
No.
any sense because it's so Japanese.
Yep.
Like, the
Exactly.
entire
It's I've said it
conceptualization-
before. I've said it before. No studio executive will sit there and listen with a straight face as you explain how Tetsuo turns into a giant pile of livers.
We saw
Okay,
this
like,
already.
it's
We saw what happened when you try to give a Japanese writer-director kind of carte blanche and try to do an American film. It was Ang Lee's Hulk. Ang Lee's Hulk is so bananas because he puts so much Asian philosophy in it. It doesn't make any sense in the West.
There's a lot of things about that movie, but yes. That's yeah.
Because there's transference of
but,
energy.
but then also trying to. And I'm not calling Americans dumb, but
But we are.
but the other thing is like American audiences like once you try something high concept on them in a movie theater, they just fucking check out. And then like to sit and then like trying to sit there and explain to someone like no, Akira is not a physical thing, like it's a consciousness, it's a fucking supernatural subdimensional whatever the fuck you want to call it, and power or whatever the fuck it is.
Technically, Akira is a real person. They just
Would
their
you
power
Did you put
was
your glasses
so.
up there, Eric?
But he-
the thing is,
Did you
he
put
leveled,
No,
She's in a
he
jar.
leveled up. He went to the next level.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
it's-
if you read
it's-
the manga, like it explains so much more because the movie ends at basically the halfway point,
Yeah,
or at least there's so much more to it, and even the movie couldn't do it all justice. But the
And, like-
movies.
Here's the
Yeah.
thing, that movie
And the
died when Blade Runner lost money. That's
Yep.
the movie's not happening now.
Well,
Yeah,
here's the
and,
thing:
like-
is like they try to make that movie. Keanu in the past has tried to make Cowboy Bebop, which is like way simpler,
Mhm.
and he couldn't get that done. It's literally a space cowboy movie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
space cowboys and gangsters.
I
Yeah.
love that show, and it has amazing music, and they couldn't get
Yes,
that
it does. The soundtrack to that show is
Apparently,
so good.
I didn't. So I haven't seen Blade Runner 2049 yet, but someone did show me. I'm not gonna say which character, but someone showed me Spike's death with somebody else's fate in 2049, and they're filmed and framed identically.
So from that's the movie.
Wait,
The movie, I actually
Is that-
kind of
Spike who's Spike?
Spike is the main character from. No, Spike is the main character from Cowboy Bebop.
Oh,
When
okay.
we're done with the show, you'll have to tell me, Connor, because
Yeah,
you
I'm
have
not
to tell
sure.
me.
Yeah.
So if I-
Well, do you
trying
know
to remember.
Do you know the actor Connor? 'Cause I don't
Yes.
think that'd be that much of a spoiler to know the
Yeah.
actor.
Well, I think it's still too far because I still haven't seen it, so I don't want to
Well-
fucking spoil a movie I haven't seen yet.
Can you type it
is-
into Skype so I can see it? Because I would.
is there a
Yeah.
giant? Is there a giant bird in it?
I don't think so.
No, there's no giant birds in Blade Runner 2049.
Oh,
Where's
Oh,
my
that's
beard?
exactly who I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
So there's a sword and a gun.
Really though, where's my beard?
Okay,
Well,
Alan.
It's my bird. My boy.
Alan coming in the last round to really throw it in there. Okay.
I know we've gone through everything. I do have to say, randomly, if you guys haven't watched, we've been watching The Toys That Made Us. We've done 3 of the episodes so far. It is goddamn amazing.
Yep.
It's on
That
Netflix.
show's great. It's real good.
Yeah, I started watching it, and then my wife and I just weren't in the mood to watch it, so
We just
I'll have to
watched-
go back to it.
We watched He-Man today, but I got her into it because we started with Barbie. I think Barbie is a great starting point for anybody that doesn't think they're going to be into it. Because the
Yeah.
Barbie stuff is crazy.
The Barbie stuff is insane. The German
Porn doll?
porn
hooker doll?
I struggle to call it a porn doll, but
No, it's like a hooker doll.
yeah, it's like a.
I have heard it explained that basically it was a little symbol you'd walk up, show a woman, and go, huh? This is how I want to see
Right.
it.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like
it was like a gift you
So it
would
was
buy
show
your...
me on the doll where you want to touch me.
Well,
type of
so
thing?
on,
Yeah,
on-
no, actually, yes. It was kind of
Yeah.
like you would buy the doll at like a porn store, and then you would
Yes.
order it like kind of how you wanted to dress, and you'd give it to your wife, being like, "Hey, I want you to wear
Right.
these clothes."
on like Valentine's Day, you'd bring it
Man,
home.
fucking white people and sex was so fucking weird a long time ago.
Well, Germany
The like
specifically.
Was.
Oh, and then the Lego one is really cool too. And then we
Yeah.
just watched a He-Man, and the He-Man one is awesome because it only takes place over like 5 years.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
He-Man one is crazy.
Yeah.
Hello Kitty is fascinating as well.
I haven't seen. Yeah, we've only seen
we'll
those
get to
3.
that, yeah, that's probably the next. I think that is the last one because
Yeah,
unless they do another season, which I hope they do because
Yeah.
that
you were
show
talking. I mentioned it on Pixels. I was like, I don't even know what they could do for another season. I was like, Pokemon and Cabbage Patch dolls.
I mean, they can go everywhere.
Transformers.
They did Transformers this season 2.
I mean,
Oh, they did?
They
Okay.
should,
Yes.
they should end it with Toy Story. That's what they should.
So there's 8 episodes. It's the first season is Barbie, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, He-Man. Season 2 is Lego, Hello Kitty, Transformers, and Star Trek.
Well, that's actually the same season. It's just cut in half. They did an
Yes.
A and B thing with it. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. On my Netflix, at least, they show like season 1 and 2. But I guess it's
Hmm.
it's only 8 episodes.
Well, I mean, just an idea for something they could do for the next season would be just about toy stores, just about KB and Toys
Yeah.
R Us and
That
FAO
could be
Schwartz
Yeah.
and Lionel Kitty City and
Hmm.
Children's Palace. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're
think we
good,
can-
guys.
Yeah, I think we can
Yeah.
wrap.
Yeah.
So I'm Connor McGraw. By the time of this recording, Movie Dumpster's new episode should be on its way out. We just did Tammy the T-Rex. Finally, it was awesome. Probably the most fun we had with the movie so far, outside of like probably Equilibrium and Bad Taste. Should be out soon.
Lost Horror podcast every week. Episode that just came out was Netflix movies that we enjoyed or had a good time with. Let's go watch that. Next week is De Palma. So we went into Blowout and Dressed to Kill. So look forward to that.
Going by Arlen's earlier comment, Alan, you should go now.
Okay. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alan Muir. You can follow me on Instagram at ComicsBoy. Don't forget to visit and join the Facebook group.
That's right.
Uh,
The next episode of Smallville Chronicles should be dropping sometime soon.
Should be Wednesday.
And it'll be episode 4 of season 1, which is
Cool.
yeah, and
What is this, Mad Libs? What's happening?
I don't
I'm
know.
trying.
It's tag teaming.
Me and Alan record so much, like I know his thoughts at this point.
Damn.
Well, I guess one of us has to.
Yeah, somebody needs to. 'Cause, oof.
Yeah. Is that it, Al?
yeah. Oh wait, no.
Oh?
You can look forward to a special episode of Video Game Hour with Emmett Watkins, Hunter Davenport, myself, and a special guest.
Connor McGraw.
No,
Hey, what? Surprise!
where we
I didn't even know.
it'll be after E3, and we're gonna do a postmortem.
Nice.
I will plug for Hunter before I go. Hunter says, "Don't fucking follow me anywhere." I'm Eric Fedorchak. You can find me floating around the Phantom Zone, comics, various other stuff talking about there. Eric_Fedor, dogs, cats, comics, food. And my end bit will be that I'm going to advise people to go out and pick up the David Wong books, the John Dies at the End series. I just finished the third of the books. What the hell did I just read? They're phenomenal. They mix really great humor with Cthulhu-esque horror and just bizarreness, and it's quite good. And if you haven't seen the movie John Dies at the End, it's actually worth checking out. It was directed by the guy who directed Phantasm.
Okay, I was going to ask if that was connected to that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the movie is based on the first book, as best they could. And unfortunately, it doesn't do a very good job of it, except for like the first 45 minutes. After that, it feels like they ran out of money.
All right, so I am Lou A. Gonzalez on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also in the Phantom Zone group. Like Alan said, Smallville Chronicles this past week featured Lizzie Kaplan. The next week is Cool with a guy with ice vampire powers, very similar to Killer Frost.
Okay, no, stop.
You do get a very psycho kind of naked 15-year-old girl scene in this episode because it's 2001.
You've piqued my interest, sir.
Like, every time you guys fucking fire off a synopsis, you just make me so happy I never watched this.
The problem is the good episodes are amazing, and you should watch them
Because, like, this sounds like the bottom of the barrel tier Flash episodes, but
No.
way worse because there's 15 years of time in between them.
See, what you're saying is, though, that The Flash is even worse because it's borrowing bottom of the barrel Smallville episodes 15 years later.
Lou's got you. He's
Ooh,
got you, man.
touche.
He's got
Trust me,
you.
I'm not denying that currently, right now, in this timeline. Fuck the Flash.
The worst part that you can see in the show is that like a lot of the speed effects are exactly the same.
Yep.
Yeah, I was actually saying before we started the show that I caught a few minutes of like the Bart Allen episode and then vomited, and then never went back.
Yeah, the only times that it's like really bad is when there's non-practical effects. Like any CG or green screen is high garbage. Like that Amy Adams episode, there's a CGI deer that should be on Dreamcast.
All right then, that is the show, I believe. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Project Hawkeye in October. Bye.
Fuck X-Men Apocalypse.
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 Apocalypse?
Apply.
like
Now I want tacos, you bastard.
Apply
Like I
should be
X-Men.
offended.
Apply X-Men atopically.